All right. Well, thank you once again. My name is Vandana Chaudhry. I'm the founder and CEO of Vendizer, which is a B2B marketplace purpose-built for fashion. My personal career in fashion started many years ago as a buyer in Bata, which a lot of you know as the 1,500 store chain across India dealing with footwear. I actually started as a cashier in a very small store in Kalighat in Calcutta. And if some of you are familiar with Calcutta, you know it's a fairly colorful place. And it was one of those stores which didn't have doors, didn't have an AC, it had a shutter. And so I had to come into the morning, pull up the shutter, and then sit at the table all day. And with a fancy MBA degree at the start of my career, that setting made me very desolate. But at the same time, it was priceless in helping me understand truly how customers think, what they want, and how to read between the lines and deliver what customers expect of us. I then went to go for a marketplace called Times of India, their India Times shopping arm, and spent a little bit of time there building out their fashion vertical, gifts vertical, and then finally went on to be between some grocery and some more digital experience, went on to be the head of sales for Crocs in India. And then 6 years and a couple of continents later, decided to do something about the problem that me and a lot of my friends had been facing around wholesale not being digitized enough and still being fairly fragmented. To put it in perspective, if any of you own a fashion brand and you wanted to build out your site, you would go to one platform. You'd go to a Shopify or you'd go to a Magento or a Demand Commerce. But there is no corresponding platform for wholesale. There is no one digital destination where you could go and build out your brand and talk to different customers with different terms and different expectations, all digitally. And that is what we're setting out to build. As a corporate leader, it was hard for me to take the leap between a well-paying, cushy, protective, secure job to an entrepreneur journey. And there were a couple of things that I did find quite hard. The uncertainty of when we will find customers, will they like a product, things like resources, fundraising. And so what I did was I structured that journey from being a corporate to being an entrepreneur into a couple of parts. I did a couple of courses online. I joined an accelerator called Antler that helped me sharpen my learning curve, especially around fundraising and building networks within the industry. And that is also where I met and found my co-founder, and together we built a business. We spent about 10 weeks validating and understanding how we could build and then scale, and then went on to get traction. And as of today, in about three to 4 months, we've built almost 30% growth month on month and got up to about 90 brands so far and about 300 retailers on the other side. So that's a very, very quick overview of Vendizer. I will also walk you through what we do in a bit. When Kanchan was speaking to me, she was talking about my experience of building a B2B business in a global marketplace. Because I started this business in Australia and I'm now trying to take it across the world. So what I have put together for you today is frameworks really, and a couple of things that I have personally experienced both as a founder, as a multi-country scale-up leader, but also as a global sales expert. And I want to walk you through some of those. So by no means is this a guide to B2B marketplaces or building out a B2B business, but a couple of frameworks that could potentially help you when you start thinking about building a multi-country brand. The first one really is about design thinking. And this is the 101 of when you're starting to look at a different country or a different customer. And the way we look at this is that it's called the double diamond approach, and there are two perspectives to it. So when you start with a problem, when you first think about a customer, digress and think about all possible problems that customer has in your sphere of influence. So if you're, for example, building a fashion brand, think about your customer. Who's that customer? What problems does she have or he have? What is their lifestyle? What are they struggling with? What are their opportunities? And once you've digressed enough, compress back to the top 3 or top 4 that you can address or your brand can solve for them. Is it about confidence? Is it about acceptance in society? Is it about being online with trends or how? So digress first, put down all possible problems. But because as a young business or as a new idea, you couldn't possibly boil the ocean on day one, compress back and think about the top 3 problems that you think your brand or your business can solve for your customer. Then the next time, it is again about diverging and thinking of all possible solutions that you could deliver to solve these 3 problems. And truly, it seems counterintuitive, but when you sit down and start writing this and think about those problems, there are so many solutions that one could potentially do. And then once you've sort of charted out all possible solutions, compress back into the top 3 that are right for you in terms of resources and the impact your business can have. So literally what I would do is write down all possible solutions and on a grid of impact versus effort, plot out where do you need high impact versus low impact, and what will be high effort versus low effort. And then pick the top 3 solutions that you think are most meaningful for your customers and will help you create differentiation and bring them to you versus other status quo or other ways that they solve that problem currently. So that's one framework. I think once you've gotten a clear idea and the clarity of what's the problem you're trying to solve and how you've looked at the solution, the next step is to define your surface area of love. And this is, again, a very interesting concept. I can't claim credit for it, but I've put in a link on the model and you can read a little bit more about it. But often this is about manufacturing love for yourself. And how do you do that as a small business? Because you have only so many resources and only so much time to build it. And so the way we look at this is a surface area of between the effort you do and how passionate you are and how many people you can reach the idea to. And so simplistically, the more you do about the idea, the more traction you get, the more thoughtful you are, the more thoughtful your product is, and the number of people you speak to or reach out to dramatically increases your surface area of love. And this drives opportunities and this generates incentives for other people to help you. There's a lot more to read about it, and in questions, I'm very happy to take any of the questions. Once you've done this, I think the third perspective is truly getting to know your customer, because you've understood their problem, you've understood the solution. Now, what makes their life tick? What makes it move? And who is an ideal customer? So between a sea of customers, there are different types of businesses, different industries, different revenue segments, different priorities, different life stages between a startup or a scale-up or a mature IPO business. So I think it's very important for you to understand who's that ideal customer, look at the business characteristics, look at the lifetime value, look at what drives them, what are the psychographics, what are the demographics, who's the decision maker, and what is the pain point. And it's very important for that pain point to be aligned to your double diamond set of 3 problems. And that is how you identify the right customer. Endizer, for example, is a B2B marketplace and potentially could speak to any brand on the planet. But at the same time, we can't really boil the ocean on day one. So we then compressed and narrowed down into small and medium businesses and brands that wanted to build a business but did not have the capital, the crew, or the contacts to build out the strong B2B business. And that's their pain point. They want to grow, they don't have the resources, and there's only so much risk they can take. So that's the problem. And then our target, therefore, is that small and medium enterprise brand who's trying to grow globally or even within their own country. Also look at things like cost of acquisition. How hard is it for you to acquire this customer? And is it meaningful given your current funds? And if not, will you raise funds? And then what is your strategy to raise those funds? And again, what makes us the best fit for that customer? What is it that we're doing? What are those 3 solutions that we've done to really hone in on that customer and change their world? So I think between this model and the double diamond, you'll have a really good idea of what the problem is, what's the solution that you can meaningfully build today, and who's that customer for. We then move on very quickly to how to define the team. And what I put in here is not so much about the people, but about the characteristics. So especially when you're growing a business or launching in a new market, there are 5 key skills that you need to have in your team. And people could be a combination of these skills, or it could be independent people. But essentially, of the 5 things, the first is the stars. You need high-performing individuals who can help you spread the word and build a business. These could be in sales, this could be in finance, these could be in marketing. Essentially, they're the ones who are the role models for the rest of the team. The second aspect is the Sherpas, or the operational leadership, people who keep the machine humming, who keep the engine oiled, well-functioning, and once business comes in or once customers come in, deliver a really strong quality experience. The third is the strategist. And for the most part, when you're launching a business, this should be you. But equally, if you're in a market that is new and you don't quite know, you can deploy external strategists who can help you think through and refine your thinking about the GTM, about the approach and the financials involved. The fourth part is specialists, the domain experts, the people who know their bit and their business, situational leaders who will come in and offer gravitas to a situation that is tricky. Again, these could be across specialized functions, like let's say supply planning or manufacturing or ESG, or it could be generalists who have had extensive experience and are an authority on that subject. And then finally, you need supporters. You need people who are team players, who are the glue in the team. Typically, they're very strong HR representatives or HR business partners or could be across any function, but they're the supporters. They keep the whole team together, they keep the happiness in the team, and they keep everyone motivated and excited. So when you are looking at scaling a B2B business to a new market, figure out ways to get these skill sets in that business, in that team. And it could be less than 5 people or more than 5 people, but you should cover off or try and cover off most of these skills in that team. And then lastly, I think the other thing I would want to touch upon is feedback loop. Often, a lot of us fall prey to thinking we know what customers want. And a lot of times that is driven by experience or driven by our own personal consumer experiences. But often consumers shift and preferences shift and priorities shift. And no better example than how COVID came and changed the world for all of us. Till 5 years ago, B2B e-commerce was a really hard market that wasn't growing because people didn't want to move from their very comfortable space of having in-person relationships and being able to give an order over a phone or an email. But then suddenly one day, all personal interaction stopped and everyone was forced to go online. And as people now come back to a hybrid world, they absolutely want the relationships again, but they have seen how efficient it can be to go digital. And so they are looking for hybrid ways to create digital efficiencies in a human-based world. And so things like that, or insights or inputs like that, is what customers can give you. So when you build a product, find your early believers and incentivize them to give you feedback and almost co-create the product with them. So that knowledge and that wealth of experience benefits the product that you're building. A very interesting quote that I wanted to leave you with was at Amazon, which is a multinational conglomerate. They have three principles. First is working backwards from the customer, understanding what the customer needs, and then working backwards from there. And in the tech world, it's quite different to how a lot of other companies operate. So one of the things that's very famous about Amazon is when they decide to launch a new feature, they first write out a press release for it, and they write out how they want to communicate to the world and the benefits to the customer. And once they've done that and agreed on that, that is when it flows back to the tech team and then get starting build. And I think that is something that we can all adapt into our own businesses as well, is trying to first articulate what is it that we're trying to do, who it impacts, and how does it make their life better? And then working backwards to say, what is the technology or what is the brand or what is the sourcing or the material that we need to achieve that outcome? And then, of course, that leads to invention. But inventions don't change the world in day one. So it is very important to be patient. There's another very interesting meme that I haven't put in the presentation, which is about Jeff Bezos almost framing and keeping a copy of a magazine that called him an extremely risky bet about 16 years ago. So of course, there's a lot of humility there, but also that patience of knowing we're on the right track and that if we've done our work well and if we understand our customer, the results will follow. Four things to leave you with, if this is all that you take away from the presentation, keep it simple. Keep your expansion strategy, new market strategy very simple. There are so many left field things that will happen. As long as your core strategy is simple, you'll have the mental and the financial bandwidth to be able to manage and overcome those challenges. The second is think exponential, not incremental. If you're going into a new market and it's only giving you 15% growth, it's probably not worth it. You probably will be better off getting that from existing market. But if it can give you 10x growth or 10x brand awareness, then that is an opportunity worth chasing. The third thing is show up. And I know it seems really simple, but often a lot of times, especially when times get hard, it's really hard to pull ourselves out and come back and be business as usual. But often they say that 50% of the hurdle is crossed when you show up. So find ways, find the motivation, find the perseverance, find the community, find the support to show up when things are getting tough, because that is when you can truly make an impact. And then lastly, and my favorite, celebrate all wins. There aren't enough. It's a hard world. Building a new business or scaling your existing business has challenges. So celebrate every possible win you can get to motivate your team and motivate yourself. With that, I'm going to put in a very brazen plugin about Endizer. We're a B2B marketplace. We're helping brands grow overseas and helping capture new markets. So if you are a fashion or lifestyle brand or speak to those brands or keen to expand in Australia and want to sell your story, not just your products, we're very keen to hear from you. With that, I'd like to conclude my deck and I'd love to take away your questions.